Lauren and John. You know, one thing that strikes me with Aveling and companies like yours, whilst you didn't invent RTO, you've dominated the industry. You've kind of taken ownership of it, and I see this in a few businesses. They're able to put themselves at the top of the tree and they become the standard. What do you think has enabled Aveling to do that, Lauren?
I think we have a very big focus on customer service. So for us, it has always been about the customer experience, and that we look at customer service as internal and external. So it's, you know, not only to our clients and our customers and course participants, but it is also to each other. So, you know, we see that the departments work together and provide customer service to each other. So then I guess it sort of feeds into then our values, and how we work together and treat each other. So there's probably that, and then I guess the big focus we have on quality. So we do have a very large focus on not only being compliant with our programs, but providing quality service and quality products as well.
John, you deal with family businesses a lot in your line of work, and we quite often see that they're able to go into markets that maybe other people are already in, maybe more corporate businesses that aren't family businesses, but these family businesses seem to be able to break through those barriers and set new standards. What do you think it is about family business that allows them to be so influential in their particular marketplaces from your experience?
The culture and the values. Just what Lauren was talking about. It's quite incredible when a focus in a family is about service to others. So you find that the culture permeates through the whole business. The way that the family relate to staff is the way that family will also relate to the client. The values of trust and empathy and relationships, keeping that together is generally a very high level focus, and a lot of companies that want high quality, they want to have very good communication with their suppliers, they want to have a very good trust with their suppliers. They find that it works pretty much all the time when you find a family in business who have professionalised to such a degree that they can communicate on the same level as the corporates.
One thing that strikes me, I'm sure it's a question for a lot of business owners out there, is with a family, how are they able to remain innovative? Because you imagine, Lauren, you grew up with mum and dad and it's always done that way. How do you manage to break the cycles and bring personality and the newness into a business when you've grown up with the same old way and maybe not know anything different? How do you manage to break through that, because you're constantly innovating?
Yeah, so I think when you have a leader who's quite entrepreneurial as well, my dad is very big picture, so always looking at opportunities. You know, mum and dad have had other businesses as well in the past, and they no longer have them, but at the same time dad's always looking for different opportunities and always puts forward different ways of doing things. The other thing is when you employ people in certain roles, you do, like I said, our values are develop, nurture and appreciate. Part of that is them feeling open to give us ideas and say, well, this is how you're doing it, could you possibly try something else? So it's also about listening to your staff and the people around you.
You know, listening to that, John, you hear about mum and dad's had different businesses in the past, and quite often the next generation have also had different experiences in different jobs. Do you think as generational changes go through a family business, it is important that the next generation has had experience in different companies, or is it just as important to employ people from the outside in to bring that innovation? What do you tend to talk about with your clients?
Bringing outside ideas into the business is always a wonderful way of renewing and refreshing. Family businesses can tend to be very internal focused. So when we have individuals that the younger generation The choices, when we have these choices, do we bring them straight in or send them out? I'm very strong of the opinion that the younger generation need to go out and work somewhere else first. There's a whole series of things that these individuals, these younger family members get. They get to have some personal experiences away from being told what to do from mum and dad. They get to learn different ways of doing things. Mum and dad, in this case, mum and dad have had other businesses, and their experiences will have been brought into the Aveling structure. So the younger generation, if they work somewhere else, they're going to learn different ways of doing business. And there are many different ways, obviously. They also have the opportunity working outside to be rated or graded by other employers. In other words, you might get a promotion or two. Having a promotion or two will bring you such self-esteem because it wasn't mum or dad that patted you on the head and said good boy or good girl. You know, it's really important that you understand who you are as an individual before you come into the business. And I know Lauren's worked in a totally different field before she came into the business and was quite successful in what she did. So the working outside, and then if and when they do choose to come back into the business, and it should be a choice, not a demand, if they choose to come back into the business, then they bring that outside expertise, but they also bring a much wider network into the business. So there's opportunities that will be there for the family business to look further afield.
It's interesting, like you say, like Dad was very entrepreneurial and he's very big picture. Well, when he's growing up and you're basically each morning you're having breakfast with the boss.
Yes.
Does that have an influence on how you think and approach business, even when you've had your other experiences? Did it benefit you, and what do you say about that?
Yeah, look, Dad was a leadership and management trainer. So a lot of, and it's funny because we joke about it all the time. You know, we grew up, Tuckman's model is something we grew up with. So there's a lot of different, I guess, models and theories that Dad would just bring into just general conversation and life. And I remember talking about locus of control when I was in primary school. So that's not, so for Rhiannon and I, that's not foreign. That is actually just, we even might take it a little bit for granted. So we were fortunate in that respect that we had a little bit of this theory, and we watched a lot. And I don't think as a kid you realise how much you take in until you need to use it. You just think, oh, well, that's how I grew up. But then all of a sudden, you see how all these things are applying in your adult life, and it's really interesting. So, yeah.
Do you find that, John, in family business, that as the generations are coming through, they've kind of got this in their DNA, and they don't realise it? They just go, well, this is just normal. This is how it is. But it's actually quite different than someone who hasn't grown up in a family business. Very
definitely. The family, you don't know what you don't know. And in a lot of cases, without having a reference point when you're growing up, you don't even know what you do know until the test is thrown at you. So a lot of tests, if you're within the family structure and you're in the family business, some of the tests is how you react to other family members.
Yeah.
Those challenges, they come at you. And it doesn't change whether you're 6th or 7th generation or 10th and 11th generation. Those challenges will come up. We don't know what we don't know, and we also don't know what we do know until the challenge comes to us.
For people who may be just thinking of stepping into the family business, Lauren, and you've been in, you've been out, you're back in again, what do you say to them when they go, look, Dad and Mum want me to come in, or maybe it's a brother, or maybe it's a cousin that's running the business, and they're looking at going in. Do you have any advice that says, when you go in, this is the type of conversation you really need to have when you're stepping into this space?
I guess in terms of the conversation to have, I think expectations need to be made really clear. I was very conscious, given that what I studied at uni was totally different to business and the business that Mum and Dad had. It was quite a big decision for me, because as far as I was concerned, once I made that commitment, that was the commitment. So it wasn't when I say that we were in and out, it was more, to move out to have children. It wasn't I'll stay here for 3 months and then I'll go off and do something else. So for me, it was a commitment. And before I had kids, I think I was in the business about 8 years in pretty much a full-time capacity. And that was, I was sort of leaving a little bit of what I was doing previously behind. So it is a bit about what the expectation is. Sometimes it's fine if a family member wants to go, I've got 3 months. Do you need any help? And if that's the agreement, then that's the agreement. Then that's no problems at all. But it's just being very clear on what the expectation is of, both parties.
Mm. This is something you do talk about a lot, isn't it, John? Having that conversation and clearing expectations. Interesting word from Lauren, commitment. I actually quite like that word myself when you're moving, whether it is for 2 days a week, whether it is for 3 months, whether it is going to be permanent. How do you assist with those types of conversations? Because you can imagine sometimes, as you said before, people don't know what they don't know.
You have to have the conversations. There is no escaping the need for the conversation. If you don't have a conversation, I keep using the word conversation, if we don't have these conversations without clarity of the reason you're coming in, the length of time you're coming in, how you're going to exit, what remuneration you're going to get, whether or not you're going to interact with other people, whether you're going to be kept private, whether you're going to come into the office, whether you're going to work remotely, all of these things have an effect. And if we don't have that little bit of clarity around what's going on, the likelihood of something going pear-shaped is much, much higher. And when I say pear-shaped, these situations without having really good conversations can actually be quite destructive to family relationships.
Mm. It's interesting as you start going through generations, and I can imagine, with Lauren, you're saying Mum and Dad had a couple of businesses they got rid of, then they've got Aveling, but this one's like stuck. It's like going, oh my goodness, no, the kids are moving in. As a younger person looking, do you forward think, do you go, hold on, I'm having children myself. Is this for them as well? Does your thinking moving now, or is this not quite that far? What's it like as that next generation coming through?
Yeah, so this has always been the main business. Mum and Dad's other businesses were sort of on the side, but this was always the main one. So yes, I guess even coming back in, my kids pop in every now and then, and they're only little. My daughter's 5. But I do think sometimes, oh, is this going to be for her later on? And I think, oh, is it something that they would want to do later? And I think when you have your own kids then as well, you do think about the future, and you also think about the past as well, and go, well, my daughter she's like, oh, well, I know that Poppy's the boss. So she knows that Mum and Dad have this business. So it's interesting thinking about that and whether they will. I'm happy for them, having said that, to be like I was, 10, 11 or 12 and helping out within the business, because it teaches them other skills. So whether or not they end up in the business, she might decide that, at the moment she wants to have a ballet school. Well, you know what? Then learn about business. You've got a business there. So I guess it's not just about whether they want that one or what they want to do later in life. It just teaches other skills. It's a
fascinating point of view, teaching other skills. I mean, you can't get that life skill. And I think you were saying about it earlier on, John, where people, as your children, you're younger, and we are younger, and we grow up, we actually don't realise what we're absorbing. And that is an interesting point of view. What's your take on, as the generations come through and then they start bringing their children into the business? What's your take on that? And you have these conversations.
Different parents will allow their children or support their children into different fields, into different life experiences. I know of some families where they will charge their children with developing a new product or developing a new business on the side. They might fund that exercise and see how they perform, whether they're capable and how capable they might be. So the younger generation has an opportunity. The parents might be supportive of that opportunity so that it's even educating outside. I think there's a story about the owner of IKEA. I think he bought a furniture business in the UK and he said, let my kids learn over there. And he put his children in to run this furniture business in the UK. Now, I'm assuming that's a true story, whether it's an anecdote, but it's a lovely little example of what parents might do to let their kids learn. It's a little bit extreme from the average man in the street or the small medium business owner, but having an opportunity to do that is wonderful. Some families will involve their children in philanthropic ideas. They can suggest, okay, if we're going to make a profit this year of X amount of dollars and we want to give some money to a charitable organisation and there are 3 grandchildren and they're all sufficiently interested, why don't you 3 go away and each of you do a proposal on who we should give the money to and how much we should give to, and present it to the family, and then the family gets to make a choice. The kids are learning from that experience about how to make decisions. They're learning how to do research. They're learning how to interact with the rest of the family, and lots of life skills come out in those situations. So that different families will do it different ways.
Yeah. It's just listening to it going, I am very conscious of your time, but I suppose a lot of business owners would be looking, and as you said, we've gone through a fairly tough economic timing in West Australia. It's 2019 now. Businesses going through that and trying to future-proof themselves. I'm sure that conversation has gone around the table a few times. What suggestions or thoughts do you have to help people and say these are types of things we've considered about future-proofing ourselves going forward? Because I know you're very innovative and you're always looking forward.
Yeah, so I guess there was a big push at the time to look at our budget and reduce costs where we needed to. I guess our biggest cost is our wages, and we, once again, and this comes back to the people that we had managers who actually said, I'll drop a day a week, and there was a number of them that did that, and it worked out that at the time that was doable, and we were very lucky that we had people who were willing to do that. The other thing is the diversification for us. So we were very heavily reliant on the mining and construction industries. Part of it was, putting a bit more money into business growth and marketing and looking at other industries and developing more products. That team has worked really hard to develop new areas, new products within different industries as well. So just having a look at, what other things because you don't want to move too far away from your core business, but at the same time, you're going to have to be a little bit creative in what other things you think the business might be able to do. Do
you look outside? Do you look at not just what other people in your industry do, but are you looking at what other industries are doing to glean ideas? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the education and training industry. That's very, very broad. So, there's various industries, there's qualifications and different courses within various industries. There's different learning methodologies as well. So, like I said, predominantly we've been, more, I guess, within the safety. So safety within mining and construction, the leadership and management, and really when times are tough, companies don't tend to spend a lot of money on their training. They only do what is required. So we also looked into that. What is the compulsory training that people require, and whether that be industry or other organisations as well.
Mm-hmm. John, when you talk to families, you do a lot with succession planning and sort of going to cover that, but when you're talking to them, and a lot of these family businesses want to future-proof themselves, they want the next generation to be as successful, if not more successful. What are some of the strategies or ideas that you share or have discussed with them to help them achieve those outcomes?
There are a lot of different sides in this. Firstly, you've got to find out how young the people are and how old the people are, because there could be some pretty substantial age gaps in there, and the next generation may not be ready to step into the family business in a leadership role straight away. So There's just a flag on that one. Assuming the younger generation coming through have been identified as leaders, we want to find out where their skills are. We need to do some evaluations of their performance. They need to, I suppose, stand up to the parents' perspective of when are they going to stand up. So the parents' questions is always, when are these kids ever going to stand up? And the kids' question is, well, when are they always going to leave? I mean, we need them to go. So we need to have conversations again about when it's appropriate. We need to be able to understand from the parents' point of view, when is the right level of standing up, because parents do tend to, keep stretching that little line in the sand, keeps moving further and further away. And the kids also have this perception of, well, Dad will never go or Mum will never leave. They keep saying that we'll get it. Well, one day will never come. So we need, this kind of thing is what are the concrete pieces that we can put in train so that we can get the skills, so that we can get the stepping stones in place and have common understanding.
And in business in general, John, someone in business today, what would be your one, if you used to give one piece of advice as we're rounding out 2019, what would be your one piece of advice for business that they could focus on, an area of their business they could focus on that will help them as they go forward?
Cash flow. It's the simplest, best way of recognising how healthy your business is at any point in time.
And Lauren, that's the same question for you.
Can you repeat the question?
We're getting towards the end of 2019.
Yeah.
And just, if someone was to say, just give me one piece of advice or one area of my business you'd recommend I focus on, just to help me get through this next period, what would you say to someone who's asking for that kind of bit of guidance? Just one hint or tip.
Yeah, I probably agree with John in the cash flow. But the other thing is for us, it's also about, I guess, trying to articulate it. For us, it's about, trying to do the right thing by people as well. So there's often tough times and moving forward, it's about the values that you bring and just trying to be kind to others and do the right thing where you can. Obviously, there's a lot of important parts of the business like the cash flow and the financials that are really, really important. And that's where, we've had situations recently where it's also about feeling comfortable in how you deal with others. So that's probably something that I would mention.
Mike, you asked about one thing, okay? It's coming towards the end of the calendar year of 2019. There's a lot of stuff going on. People get caught up in the news of the world. We're looking overseas, we're looking at home, and to say what's the focus, to keep you going, and saying long-term focus. Cash flow is one perspective of it, but in any business, you've also got sales. You'll never make a profit if you don't make a sale, so you need to be looking consciously at your sales. Cash flow is a part of it, but you need to look at your costs. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure that even if you are growing, you want to make sure that you've got a balance sheet that can handle that. So again, the financial side of it, but then you need to know that your niche is right in the business world. So when you're supplying training, for example, that you're supplying the right training, or even if you're a supplier of digger teeth, for example, that they're the right digger teeth and you've got the right materials in them. There are just so many facets in everybody's business today, and there are so many businesses and derivations of businesses. Really, it's hard to put your finger on one thing. If you need to do some sort of quick assessment on your business, find somebody that you know and you trust to go or to come along and work with you to find out what are the 2 or 3 things you need to be focusing on.
Fantastic. I am appreciative of time. I know it's a tough question, nailing it down to one, but I think we've got some great hints and tips just to wrap up the show there. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And John Broons, as always, the founder business guy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.